Emily had always believed in fairness. Growing up, her parents had instilled in her the idea that hard work paid off, that family looked out for one another, and that no matter what, she and her younger brother Jason were equal in their parents' eyes. They weren't a perfect family. What family was? But she had never once imagined that her own mother and father would betray her in such a profound, devastating way. It wasn't until her father passed away that everything changed. His death had been sudden. A heart attack in the middle of the night. Unexpected despite his seemingly good health. One day, he had been laughing at the dinner table, teasing Jason about his latest failed business idea. And the next he was gone. Just like that. The shock of it consumed Emily for weeks. She had been close to her father, much closer than Jason ever was. Where Jason had always been the reckless one, the golden child who could do no wrong. Emily had been the responsible one. The one who helped her father with work when he needed it. The one who listened. She hadn't been thinking about money when he died. She hadn't been thinking about wills or inheritances, or who would get what. None of that had mattered. Her father was gone, and the grief was unbearable. She had assumed, perhaps naively, that when the time came to settle his estate, things would be handled fairly. That had always been his way, fairness. So when her mother sat her down one afternoon, a carefully neutral expression on her face, Emily had no reason to suspect what was coming. "We need to talk about your father's will," her mother said, folding her hands on the kitchen table. The house was quiet, too quiet. Jason wasn't home, probably out spending money he didn't have. And for a moment, Emily thought the conversation might be about something mundane. Maybe there had been an issue with the paperwork. Or maybe her mother just wanted to go over things with her before bringing Jason into it. But then her mother exhaled a long weary sigh and said, "You're not getting anything." The words didn't make sense at first. Emily blinked, waiting for some kind of clarification, as if she had misheard. "I don't understand," she said finally. Her mother hesitated, then reached for the papers in front of her, neatly stacked and filled with legal jargon Emily hadn't seen before. "Your father left a significant portion of his assets to you," her mother explained. "But after his death, I had the will adjusted. Everything is going to Jason." Emily felt the room tilt slightly, as if gravity itself had shifted. The air around her grew thick and heavy. "You changed the will?" she repeated, barely able to form the words. Her mother nodded. "It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. Jason needs it more than you do." There it was. The justification, the excuse. Jason needs it more. The same Jason who had dropped out of college because it was too boring. The same Jason who had burned through their parents' savings on failed business ventures, extravagant vacations, and impulsive purchases that never amounted to anything. Jason, who had never had to work for anything in his life because their parents had always been there to bail him out. Emily felt her hands tremble. "That money was meant for me. Dad wanted me to have it." "I know this is hard to hear," her mother said, her voice soft, almost condescending. "But Jason is struggling. He needs support. And you have a good job, a stable life. You don't need the money." Emily let out a short, humorless laugh. "So that's it. Just like that. You decide that I don't need what Dad left for me? You took my inheritance and handed it to Jason like it was nothing?" "It wasn't nothing," her mother snapped, her calm facade cracking. "This family needs to stick together. Jason needs us. You'll be fine on your own." There it was again. The same justification she had heard her whole life. Jason needed more. Jason deserved more. Jason couldn't be expected to take care of himself. And Emily would be fine. But she wasn't fine. She wasn't fine at all. She pushed back her chair, standing up so abruptly that it scraped against the floor. "You had no right," she said, her voice shaking. "Dad wanted me to have that money and you just decided he was wrong? Decided you knew better?" Her mother stood too, her lips pressing into a thin line. "I did what was best for the family." No remorse. No guilt. Just a calm, matter-of-fact statement. As if she had done nothing more than rearrange furniture in the house. As if it wasn't a betrayal. Emily swallowed the lump in her throat. "Did Jason know about this?" Her mother hesitated, then nodded. "He understands the situation." "Of course he does," Emily thought bitterly. "He understands that he gets everything while I get nothing. That's all he's ever needed to understand." She turned away, shaking with anger, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "This isn't over," she said quietly. Her mother sighed again, as if she were the one who had been wronged, as if this conversation was exhausting for her. "Emily, don't make this harder than it needs to be." Harder. As if it wasn't already unbearable. Emily stormed out of the house, barely able to see straight. The betrayal cut deeper than she had ever thought possible. It wasn't just about the money, though that part stung more than she wanted to admit. It was about what it represented. A lifetime of always being second. Always being expected to carry the weight while Jason was given every advantage. And now, even in death, her father's wishes had been disregarded. Her inheritance stolen, handed to the brother who had done nothing to earn it. She wanted to scream, to cry, to do something, but instead, she forced herself to breathe. She wasn't going to let them win. Her mother thought she would just accept this, that she would walk away quietly and let Jason enjoy what should have been hers. But Emily wasn't going to forget. And she certainly wasn't going to forgive. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Emily knew she couldn't afford to react impulsively. The betrayal burned inside her like a slow, consuming fire. But if she let her anger control her, she'd lose before she even had a chance to fight. She needed to be smart, calculated. Her mother and Jason had stolen what was rightfully hers. And she had no legal way to take it back, at least not yet. But there was always another way. If they thought she would just accept this, they were wrong. She wasn't going to fight them head-on. Instead, she was going to play along, pretend to move on, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. She started by doing exactly what they expected her to do. She stayed away. For weeks, she didn't call her mother, didn't visit the house, didn't reach out to Jason. She ignored their existence, giving them the illusion that she was licking her wounds somewhere, processing her loss, perhaps even coming to terms with it. In reality, she was planning. First, she needed to understand exactly how her mother had pulled this off. She reached out to a lawyer, discreetly of course. She wanted to know if there was any way to contest the will. But the lawyer gave her bad news. Her father's original will had indeed left a significant portion of his assets to her. But since her mother had been his primary beneficiary, she had been able to change the terms after his death. Legally, she didn't do anything wrong, the lawyer explained. Morally, that's another story. Emily clenched her jaw. Morality meant nothing to her mother. But there was something else. The lawyer also mentioned that if Jason were to mismanage his finances, rack up debt, make bad investments, there could be consequences. Assets could be seized. Loans could become a burden her mother wasn't prepared for. It wasn't much, but it was a thread. She just needed to pull it the right way. Her next step was to get close. A month after the will dispute, she finally reached out to Jason. "Hey, can we talk?" She texted. It took him less than 2 minutes to reply. "Yeah, let's grab a drink." Typical Jason. Always casual. Always acting as if nothing was wrong. But Emily had known him her whole life. She could read between the lines. He was expecting a fight. He was expecting her to lash out, to scream at him, to demand what was hers. That was the kind of confrontation Jason was used to, the kind he knew how to dodge. But she wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. When they met at a rooftop bar downtown, Emily walked in with a smile. Jason looked slightly surprised to see her so composed, but he covered it well. He had always been good at pretending. "You look good," he said, raising his glass. "You too," she lied, taking a sip of her drink. "How's everything been?" Jason grinned. "Busy. Lots of plans in the works." She tilted her head. "Yeah. Like what?" He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice as if he were sharing some grand secret. "I'm starting a business. Luxury real estate." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Luxury real estate?" "Yeah," Jason said, clearly proud of himself. "High-end properties, private clients. It's gonna be huge." She forced herself to look impressed. "That sounds incredible. How are you funding it?" Jason took another sip of his drink, clearly enjoying the attention. "The inheritance, obviously. Mom thinks it's a great idea. She even helped co-sign some of the early loans." Emily kept her face neutral, but inside her mind was racing. Loans. That meant debt. That meant risk. And if Jason was in charge, it also meant inevitable failure. You always did have big ideas, she said with a smile. I'm happy for you, Jason. He looked at her, studying her face. You're taking this really well. She shrugged. At first I was upset. But honestly, I get it. Mom's right, I'll be fine. And you? You deserve a chance to build something great. Jason blinked, as if he hadn't expected her to say that. Wow, he said. I thought you'd be furious. Emily laughed softly. What good would that do? What's done is done. She saw the exact moment Jason let his guard down. He smiled, more relaxed now, nodding as if she had just confirmed what he always wanted to believe, that she would always be the reasonable one, the one who accepted things without a fight. And that was exactly what she wanted him to think. Over the next few months she played her part flawlessly. She reconnected with her mother, visiting the house and making an effort to show that she had moved on. She listened to Jason talk about his business plans, nodding in encouragement as he made reckless decision after reckless decision. He had no idea what he was doing, but his confidence was unwavering. Emily subtly pushed him further, planting seeds without making it obvious. Have you thought about expanding into international markets? She asked one evening over dinner. Jason's eyes lit up. That's actually a great idea. And just like that, he poured even more money into something he didn't understand. She also made sure to keep close to her mother, casually asking about finances whenever she could. How's Jason handling everything? She asked one afternoon, sipping coffee at the kitchen table. Her mother sighed. He's ambitious, but these things take time. There are expenses. Emily pretended to be sympathetic. I'm sure it'll all work out. Her mother nodded, but Emily could see the stress lines on her face. She was worried. And she should be. Jason wasn't just spending the inheritance, he was borrowing against it. And since their mother had co-signed several of his loans, she was now financially entangled in his failures. Emily had waited patiently for this moment. She had allowed Jason to dig his own grave, all while playing the role of the supportive sister. Now all she had to do was sit back and watch. The reckoning was coming. Emily had always known Jason was reckless, but watching him operate his so-called luxury real estate business was almost impressive in its incompetence. He spent lavishly, pouring money into doomed ventures without a second thought. His vision was grand, but his execution was disastrous. He rented office space in the most expensive part of the city, decorated it with custom furniture, and hired an overpriced marketing firm to create a brand that screamed exclusivity. The problem? He had no real experience, no network, and no understanding of the industry. At first, his enthusiasm seemed to carry him. He boasted about meetings with potential investors, flaunted his designer suits, and constantly posted about his hustle on social media. But Emily knew the truth. He was bleeding money. And worse, their mother was bleeding with him. Emily had been careful, playing the long game. She never outright encouraged Jason's worst decisions. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she asked the right questions at the right time. She let him believe he was a genius. Are you thinking about expanding into international markets? She had asked innocently. Jason had run with it, immediately looking into high-end properties overseas, completely unaware that he was stretching himself far beyond his means. The money he had inherited was substantial, but not limitless. And now, thanks to his impulsive choices, he was drowning in debt. The first cracks started to show when his office lease became a problem. He had signed a long-term contract without reading the fine print, committing himself to astronomical monthly payments. His business hadn't turned a profit, hadn't even made a single sale, but he had to keep paying. He couldn't admit failure, not yet. Instead, he took out another loan, this time using their mother as a guarantor. Emily could see the tension building in her mother's face. At first, she had been so sure that Jason was destined for success, convinced that her decision to give him everything had been the right one. But as the months passed and she watched her golden boy struggle, she started to worry. Jason just needs time, she told Emily one afternoon over tea, though there was a slight tremor in her voice. Business takes time. Emily nodded sympathetically. Of course. He's ambitious. But, you're making sure he's being responsible, right? I mean, with the loans and everything? Her mother stiffened. It's not like that. He's just in a temporary rough patch. Emily smiled kindly. I'm sure you're right. She knew her mother hated being questioned. Even more than that, she hated the idea that she might have made a mistake. But the doubt had been planted, and Emily could see it growing. Meanwhile, Jason's downward spiral was accelerating. Desperate to prove himself, he took on more extravagant projects. Ones he couldn't afford, ones that weren't even close to realistic. He hosted events, rented out high-end venues, and courted wealthy clients who weren't actually interested in working with him. Emily watched it all unfold, never interfering, never warning him. He was doing exactly what she needed him to do. The breaking point came when one of his biggest deals collapsed. He had been negotiating the sale of a luxury penthouse, promising investors that it would be a game-changing deal. He had already spent money he hadn't earned, making business decisions based on the assumption that the deal was a sure thing. But at the last moment, the buyer pulled out. Jason was left scrambling, with no money to cover his debts and no backup plan. Their mother was the first person he called. Emily was there when the call came in. She had stopped by for a visit, keeping up appearances as the dutiful daughter, when the phone rang. She watched as her mother's face went pale, listened as her voice wavered. "Jason, slow down," she said, gripping the phone tightly. "What do you mean you need more money?" Emily sipped her tea, keeping her expression neutral. "I co-signed that last loan," their mother said, her voice rising in panic. "Jason, you promised this was temporary." Jason must have been pleading on the other end, but his words were muffled. Their mother's hand trembled. I don't have that kind of money, Jason. I thought you told me." She closed her eyes, exhaling sharply. "I need to think." She hung up and immediately turned to Emily, as if expecting her to offer a solution. Emily simply tilted her head. "Is everything okay?" Her mother let out a shaky breath. "Jason, he just needs some help." "Again?" Emily asked, her voice light, non-judgmental. Her mother flinched. "It's not like that. It's just he's in a difficult position." Emily set down her cup. "Mom, I love Jason. You know that. But are you sure this is smart? I mean, you've already put so much into this. What if he can't pay you back?" Her mother looked away, refusing to meet her eyes. That was when Emily knew she was finally winning. Over the next few weeks, the situation worsened. Jason couldn't keep up with his debts, and creditors started calling. Their mother, still in denial, tried to shield him, but the financial strain was obvious. She cut back on luxuries she had once taken for granted, canceled a vacation she had planned, and started selling off valuables. She didn't tell Emily why, but Emily already knew. Jason was in freefall, and he was taking their mother down with him. Then one night, he showed up at Emily's apartment. It was late, past midnight, when she heard the frantic knocking. She knew it would be him, before she even opened the door. Jason stood there disheveled, his usually polished appearance replaced by desperation. "I need help," he said, his voice raw. Emily leaned against the doorframe. "Help with what?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Money. Just enough to get back on track. I have a plan. I can fix this, but I need something to hold me over." Emily studied him. For the first time in their lives, Jason didn't look confident. He looked small. "How much?" she asked. He hesitated. 50,000. Maybe a little more. Emily let out a low whistle. "That's a lot, Jason." "I know," he said quickly. "But I swear, this will turn everything around." Emily pretended to think. Then with a small smile she shook her head. "I can't help you," she said simply. Jason blinked. "What?" "You heard me. I don't have that kind of money." She crossed her arms. "But even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you." His face twisted in shock. "Emily, come on. You're my sister. And you're the one who took everything from me," she said, her voice cold now. "Remember? The inheritance? The money Dad left for me? The money you used to build this mess?" Jason's mouth opened, but no words came out. Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You stole from me, Jason. And now, I get to watch you lose it all." His face paled. "Good luck," she said, then shut the door in his face. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. The damage was already done. Jason didn't call again after that night. Emily had expected him to. She had half expected her mother to show up at her door, demanding that she reconsider, telling her that family was more important than grudges, that she had an obligation to help her brother. But the silence stretched on, heavy and satisfying. She wasn't naive enough to think Jason would simply give up. He would try something else, he always did. He was a survivor in the worst possible way, scraping by on charm and manipulation, convincing himself and everyone around him that he was just one step away from success. But this time was different. He wasn't playing with their parents' safety net anymore. He had burned through it. Emily kept tabs from a distance. She didn't need to interfere. She had already done her part. The dominoes were falling on their own. The office space Jason had rented was emptied out within weeks. His security deposit gone. The furniture repossessed by creditors. His lavish lifestyle crumbled piece by piece. The luxury apartment he had been so proud of? Foreclosed. The expensive suits? Sold off. The investors he had boasted about? They had vanished the moment they realized there was nothing left to take. Then came the final blow. One evening, Emily received a call from her mother. She had almost ignored it. She had nothing left to say to her. But something in her gut told her to answer. Her mother's voice was unsteady. "It's bad, Emily." Emily leaned back against her kitchen counter, keeping her own voice calm. "What happened?" There was a pause. Then, barely above a whisper, "Jason was arrested." Emily felt a strange kind of stillness settle over her. For what? He took out more loans. Under fake information. The bank caught it, and her mother let out a shaky breath. "They're charging him with fraud." Emily closed her eyes. She shouldn't have been surprised. Jason had always lived on the edge of consequences, barely avoiding them, convincing himself he was untouchable. This time he had pushed too far. "How long?" she asked. "They don't know yet," her mother admitted. "They're still deciding. It depends on what the court rules." Emily exhaled slowly. "And what do you want me to do about it?" Her mother hesitated. "He's your brother, Emily. He needs help." The words triggered something inside her. A cold, sharp fury she had been holding back for months. "You mean the way I needed help?" she asked, her voice steady. "The way I needed my share of the inheritance? The way Dad wanted me to have it? But instead you handed everything to Jason because he needed it more?" Her mother was silent. Emily continued. "And now he's destroyed it all. And you want me to fix it?" More silence. Emily let the moment stretch. Then softly she asked, "Are you struggling too?" She already knew the answer. Jason's failures had pulled their mother under with him. The loans she had co-signed were now her responsibility. Her savings? Gone. The house she had lived in for decades? Probably at risk. Her mother sighed. "It's been difficult." Good, Emily thought. Not because she took pleasure in her mother's suffering, but because she needed her to understand, truly understand, what she had done. Emily considered her next words carefully. "I'm not going to help Jason," she said. Her mother let out a quiet gasp. "Emily, I'm not paying his legal fees," Emily continued, cutting her off. It was justice. Eventually she did help. Not in the way her mother might have hoped, but in the way Emily knew was fair. She bought the family house. Not as a gift, but as a transaction. She paid off the debt attached to it, ensuring that it was in her name, not her mother's. She allowed her mother to stay there, but with the understanding that it wasn't hers anymore. That privilege had been lost when she had chosen Jason over her. "I'm not bailing him out. I'm not loaning him money. I'm not saving him. He did this to himself." Her mother swallowed hard. But you," Emily said, her voice softer now, "I might help you." She heard the breath hitch on the other end. It had come from patience. From waiting. From letting the truth do the work for her. And now, as she stood in the home that was once hers, and then wasn't and now was again, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long, long time. Peace. "What do you mean?" Emily tapped her fingers against the counter. She had spent so long being angry, so long planning her revenge, that she had almost forgotten there was another side to this. Her mother was a victim of her own choices, yes, but she was also a woman who had lost everything. She had made mistakes, and she had paid for them in the worst possible way. "I'll think about it," Emily said finally. "I'll decide if I want to help you." Her mother's voice wavered. "Thank you." Emily hung up without another word. She didn't decide right away. She let her mother sit in uncertainty, just as she had been forced to sit in betrayal all those months ago. She let the weight of her own mistakes press down on her. It wasn't cruelty, it was balance. As for Jason, she never spoke to him again. She heard through whispers that he had been sentenced to several years, that he had tried to fight it, that he had begged and pleaded. But in the end, there was no one left to save him. Emily didn't visit. She didn't write. Her revenge hadn't come from anger or cruelty.